trick-or-treaters. I'm Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. What happened to October? Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, the Obamacare rollout goes from glitches to full-blown disaster. After 3 weeks, not a single Milwaukee resident gets signed up. Congressman Paul Ryan calls for the resignation of HHS Secretary Kathleen Sebelius. And on Capitol Hill, even some Democrats began to think about delaying the individual mandate. Now, where did we hear that idea before? In Wisconsin, reports of a new John Doe investigation into some of the recall campaigns. It's a secret investigation, which is why the news leaked last week or something. The president begins a push for immigration reform. School choice advocate Jessie Rodriguez wins a 5-way primary for an assembly seat in southern Milwaukee County. If she wins in November, she could be the first Latino Republican in the state legislature. And the banged up but first place Green Bay Packers head up to the Metrodome for one last time before the Vikings move out of that house of horrors. Now, President Obama says that no one was more frustrated than he is with a dysfunctional website that was supposed to launch the Obamacare exchanges. Improvements have been slow and spotty, and the number of enrollees continues to be a trickle. Milwaukee officials said last week that in the first full 3 weeks, not a single city resident had managed to sign up for insurance. But this raised another issue. Governor Scott Walker, along with a number of other Republican governors, had declined to create their own state exchanges, opting instead to let the feds run the program. Democrats and editorial writers now say the situation might have been better if Walker had set up his own exchange. But would that have really made a difference? Joining me in our panel this morning, political consultant Mary Baas, the Milwaukee Community Journal's Mikel Holt, and media trackers Brian Sikma. So in retrospect, Brian Sikma, should Governor Walker have gone ahead and created a state exchange? Could it have been any worse than the federal exchange?
Absolutely not, because either way he looked at this, Governor Scott Walker is going to lose this situation. He could either have the state of Wisconsin use the federal exchange, as we're currently doing, and therefore have the responsibility for paying for it, maintaining it left at the federal level, where now editorial writers are criticizing him, or he could have built it in Wisconsin, where if there had been any glitch at all, if there had been any problem, you can guarantee that all the editorial boards have been piling onto him, and Wisconsin taxpayers would be stuck with the bill.
Okay, Mikel Holt.
Of course, it would have been better. We wouldn't have had these glitches, and there would be people already signed up because you already had Badger Care in place, and you would really just transfer a lot of those people.
So you think Walker would do a better job than Obama?
I think the state of Wisconsin would absolutely do a better job because there's some precedents there. They've had Badger Care. They had some similar programs. I understand what you're saying about being kept footed with the bill in the long run, but the question was, could they do a better job? Of course, we don't know those folks in Washington, D.C. We don't know who got paid this $600,000
million
to screw up this system. But at least at the local level, there's some accountability.
Okay, Mary Baas.
If allowed, Walker would have done a much better job than Obama. The problem is that even if we had had the ultimate system in Wisconsin, Obama wouldn't let us, and we would have to get through the federal system before anyone could sign up for the Wisconsin plan.
Yeah, you see, here's the problem with this argument, is that this is a federal system. This is Obamacare. They set the rules, they set the parameters. No matter, you could create the best website in the universe, but ultimately it has to connect with the federal exchanges. And the reality is that was just not going to happen. Now, one of the things I think we're going to find, and there's already pressure, even Democrats are beginning to say that, hey, we can't really fine people for not having insurance that they cannot buy. This thing is kind of falling apart. I think people are going to start to see a lot of the other glitches in Obamacare because, this week we got the number that 1 million people have been kicked off their insurance policies as a result of Obamacare. So you have far more people who have lost their insurance than have been able to sign up for insurance under Obamacare. So you do wonder at what point, Brian Sikma, how toxic this is going to become politically in 2014.
I think Democrats are scared of this thing. Every Democrat that's going to be on the ballot in 2014 doesn't want this to happen. I think that's why we're even seeing Tammy Baldwin, for crying out loud, coming out on Friday saying she's open possibly to delaying the individual mandate here. That's because these Democrats understand that this is politically toxic for their party, for their Senate majority, and for their ability to get anything done during the remainder of the ballot presidency.
What do you think, Mikel Holt? What about delaying this for 1 year until we get it right?
I hate to say this, being the only person of any sane mind on this panel, but I think they should delay it. I think they should slow this up until they get rid of some of these. You know, I mean, you just reported they haven't signed up one person from Milwaukee yet. I was personally just going to wait until January to even try. I'm not even going to attempt to go online. The feds haven't figured out the system yet, so why not just delay it a little bit?
Michael, when Republicans suggested the delay,
they're always wrong
they were called suicide bombers, and they were called terrorists, and they were called obstructionists.
We didn't think it was going to be this bad.
You did not think it was going to be this bad. Did you think it was going to be this bad? I'm going to confess. I thought it was going to be bad. I had no idea it was going to be this bad.
Well, you know,
I still almost cannot figure out how it could be this bad.
I just because of the way they're going about it, and it's the federal government, I assumed it'd be bad. But the Obama administration worked with the Walker administration through this whole process. They have to work with them. It's the law. They assured the Walker administration all along that it was in place. It was ready to go. It was set up. It was live through the whole process, knowing it wasn't ready to go. And that's just the website. When this gets cleared up, say you wait a year, you've still got to deal with high premiums. You've got to deal with people who are simply getting rejected. You've got all sorts of problems. We're just beginning to peel the onion.
Let's remember this. Obamacare didn't pass last year. We've known about this for years, and the states have been constantly working with the federal government, as you mentioned, to meet this October 1st, 2013 deadline. This was a deadline the president knew about, that everybody at the Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. knew about, and yet they still couldn't build a website that would actually work. And that's what I think remains shocking and stunning. And conservatives, Republicans are going out saying, we don't think this is a health care system that can work. And now their point is being proven a lot faster, I think, than a lot of us expected. We expect it to be bad, but this has been proving our point a lot better.
I cannot imagine this administration admitting failure to the extent that they would delay the individual mandate, and so far not a single person has been held accountable, and until that changes, I don't see much progress. So what has your glass half full and what has your glass half empty this week? Let's go around the table. Mary Jo Baas.
Well, my glass is half full because even the Democrats are starting to admit that Obamacare is just a train wreck. My glass is half empty because they seem to be more interested in rearranging chairs on the Titanic than getting the people on a new boat.
Michael Holt.
Well, it's half empty. Michael Finley is injured. Your leading receiver is injured. James Jones is injured. Even the cheerleader with the big ankles hurt herself. The Packers have nobody to put on the field. But it's half full because they're playing Minnesota.
Yeah, Brian.
Well, my glass is half full this week because healthcare.gov is doing an outstanding job proving the conservative argument that Obamacare won't work. But my glass is half empty because now we know that in just 3 states, 1.4 million Americans have lost their health insurance plans. Apparently you can't keep it if the president don't like it.
Well, my glass is half full because a new report says that Americans are saving more for their retirements in things like 401ks. It's half empty because Americans are racking up debt even faster, pretty much like their government. Next on Sunday Insight, did our lawmakers really mean what they said about taking or not taking pay during the government shutdown? Was it a flip or a flop or something else? During the partial government shutdown, members of Congress from Wisconsin, except for Milwaukee's Gwen Moore, said they would forego or donate their salaries. Now, Gwen Moore said she would keep the money. Senator Ron Johnson and Paul Ryan both have said they would write checks to the government or charity. But last week, Senator Tammy Baldwin said that when she said that she would forego her salary, she meant that she wouldn't cash her checks during the shutdown, but now that it's over, she's going to be taking the money after all. Congressman Ron Kine and Sean Duffy said the same thing. I guess it all depends on the meaning of the word forgo, right, Mary Jo Baas? Was this a flip-flop? Did they mislead the public?
I don't think you can lump all three of them together, but Tammy Baldwin said forgo. Forgo to me says she's not taking pay for work that wasn't while the shutdown was occurring. I think, I don't know what Ron Kine's exact words were, but I believe the word that Sean Duffy used was withheld. To me, withheld means you don't get it until you fix the situation like the federal employees.
Okay, but here's the... Okay, go ahead. What?
I mean, Congressman Duffy did say forego, and I think the question is, was he going to forego for the 2 week, over 2 weeks they were out or not? It does present kind of an odd thing, though, when every other member of Congress from Wisconsin, you have Senator Ron Johnson going out, returning his money to the taxpayers, others donating it to charity, even across the country on both sides of the aisle, you have members doing this. It certainly does seem kind of an odd signal, and it would appear at least be a little bit disingenuous.
Michael Holt.
Well, I think they get paid too much anyway. Congressmen get paid, what, $174,000 a year, and then all these perks.
They earn every nickel, right?
They work 24/7. So why should they give back any money? Because even if you close down all the government, they're the only ones still working, doing whatever they do. So, and I'm being facetious.
Yeah.
Whatever they do, they deserve to get paid. So
here's what was frustrating for me. Because I beat up on Gwen Moore. Gwen Moore said, I am not going to forego, I'm not going to donate my salary, and, you know, we ripped her for that. In retrospect, she was more honest than the others, because the other guys ended up having the same effect. They got the exact same amount of money, but they wink, 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 we're going to forego it. Now, when Tammy Baldwin says, well, I just wasn't, you know, I was going to wait until later to use it, I don't even know what she means, because, you know, these checks are deposited electronically. It's not like she gets to cash the check. So what was she doing? Was the money sitting in the account and she said, I'm going to pretend it's not there?
I have a novel idea. Every lawmaker who actually read the Affordable Care Act should get paid. The one person who read it should get paid. The rest of them don't deserve to get paid anyway.
You're breaking really bad on Obamacare, aren't you?
You know, I mean, this is a quiet storm. We need Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, there's millions and millions of people without any health insurance. There are people dying because of lack of insurance. These rates are skyrocketing. But we need a plan that is effective.
You need something that would work, though.
And not something that's the Democrats shooting themselves in the foot, and they're going to turn around and lose some races in a year because they didn't take the time to actually plan this out correctly.
You know. I mean, I was critical of the government shutdown in part because of the tactic that I thought it stepped on the story of Obamacare. But of course, I was underestimating how bad the story was going to be. And so, in retrospect, I don't think the shutdown was a particularly good idea. I don't think anybody comes out ahead on it. But the Obamacare mess has not been eclipsed, has it?
No, it hasn't. We have the ongoing Obamacare debacle here. And what I think is fascinating, and I think what Republicans need to continue to do, is start offering their own free market health alternatives to health care reform. We do need health care reform in this country, but what we're getting under Obamacare is nothing but higher premiums, less choice in the system, and we're seeing primary care physicians and other physicians want to pull out of being doctors. So what we need is an all-inclusive, comprehensive free market solution to this. And I think we're going to try to see Republican ideas, and conservatives are going to start putting some ideas out there.
The only thing worse than the Affordable Care Act is what the Republicans never really offered. And they still don't offer anything.
You may not want to hear it, but we're going to tell you anyway. Let's hand out some unsolicited advice. Mary Jo Baas, you go first.
My unsolicited advice is for Tammy Baldwin. I think she should take a page from George Petak's book. He lost his recall election over a changed stadium vote. Sometimes more important than your position is being honest and sticking to your word.
Michael Holt.
I hate to say this, but let's go back to the drawing board. Pull this plan off the table till you can get it fixed, and then represent it.
Brian Sikma.
Well, outside of saying what he said to Michael, I do think that unsolicited advice would go to Assembly Democrats who recently critiqued Governor Scott Walker and criticized Republicans for passing a property tax cut just ahead of the holidays. Really, guys? You want to criticize a tax cut ahead of the holidays? Not such a good advice.
I'm just amazed that Michael Holt is sounding like Ted Cruz these days. My unsolicited advice, though, is for Jermichael Finley. Jermichael, your body is telling you that it is time when you have an injury like this. There's no shame in walking away right now. When we come back next on Sunday Insight, she promises to make no campaign promises, so can we believe her? Some big endorsements for Democrat Mary Burke in her bid for governor. Emily's List backs the Madison millionaire, which could lead to some big bucks. Russ Feingold's political group, which opposes big money, or says it does, also is backing Burke. Meanwhile, Burke says she will not be making any promises in the campaign, which is kind of unusual for a candidate. What's going on here, Michael Holt?
This is deja vu all over again. If you go back to the recall elections, you know, she has a track record, so she has to be very, very careful. But I'll tell you one thing, everybody better watch very carefully. Emily's List put Gwen Moore in office. You could talk about the vote, but it was Emily's List. We now have a U.S. Senator was put in by Emily's List. They're talking about dropping $5-10 million bucks, and she's already a millionaire. What may come back to haunt her, though, is her tenure on the Madison School Board. There was a whole lot of shenanigans that took place. She's not going to make any promises. I'll be surprised if she says anything between now and the
Well,
election.
she has said a number of things. I mean, you know, she came out against photo ID. She said that you know, government schools are better at educating.
Even though she sent her kid, I mean, she went to a private school.
Well, that's right. I mean, she said government schools are a perfect example of something the government does better than parents and individuals, even though she's the product of private schools herself, but maybe that's for the little people. But what does it come down to? I mean, I asked this on radio last week. The only thing that I can come up with in her refusal to make promises is that she just does not want to say to the unions what she would do with Act 10. What do you think?
Well, she doesn't want to do it, and she's smart.
Yeah.
It's wise not to have anything come back to haunt her. I think it's funny that people say she won't make any promises. She's obviously making promises to people at Emily's List, to Mike Tate, to the union bosses, to Russ Feingold. She's clearly setting her agenda to somebody, and they're jumping on board and they're all over it.
Okay.
Well, the no promises talking point's cute if she understands that the public is fed up with politicians who break their promises. But the problem is she is making promises, as Mary Jo pointed out. She's going out there and promising these certain things. She's giving us insights into who she is and what she's thinking about. I think she's just trying to avoid certain parts of her record, and she's trying to emphasize other parts of her record, which is maybe the result of 41 focus groups figuring out what in her biography tests so well with Wisconsin voters. But to Michael's point that Emily's List is going to be some sort of magic game changer here, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they are a force to be reckoned with, but I don't think they're going to be some magic wand for her.
We all remember how much the Democrats made of Mitt Romney and the allegations that he was responsible for the outsourcing of jobs, and we know that, of course, her wealth and her business experiences with Trek, the bicycle manufacturer, which appears to have outsourced jobs to China. Is that going to be a problem? Can Republicans bring that out without looking hypocritical?
It'll come out. It will be a problem. I think the Republicans would be wise not to do it. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. But I think there are many in her constituency. It'll dampen excitement.
Well, I think it goes to the question: is what is your jobs record? And your jobs record involves this one company, and let's face it, it is mixed. So, is what they said this week the same thing as what you heard? Let's go around the table. Mary Jo Baas.
This week, the Voces de la Frontera said that the vote on union membership at Palermo should be delayed. What I heard was, if the workers were allowed to vote on membership, exercise their right today, the union would lose.
Absolutely. Michael.
Well, what I heard from Democrats was we welcome new Senator Cory Booker to Washington. What I heard was you better not turn your back because he's too progressive and he's too black.
Brian Sikma.
Well, former White House Chief of Staff Bill Daley, who served in the Obama administration, said this week firing Kathleen Sebelius, who is in charge of implementing Obamacare, would be, quote, like firing Captain Smith on the Titanic right after it hit an iceberg. What I heard was a former top Obama administration official call Obamacare the Titanic.
Well, Kathleen Sebelius said, I don't work for those people who are calling for my resignation. What I heard was, I work for the president, not the American people, and I'm never going to be held accountable for this mess. Next on Sunday Inside, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. But first, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Mary Jo Baas, you're first.
My winner is Jessie Rodriguez. She's part of the great American story we see in generation after generation. A family flees war-torn El Salvador and comes to America for safety and opportunity. Their little girl studies hard, excels in school, and becomes a United States citizen, and is chosen by her neighbors to represent them at the state capitol. My loser this week is Mike Tate. If he can't even rally radio host Sly Sylvester and other party hacks around Mary Burke when there's no primary opponent yet, what's he going to do when she's running against Scott Walker?
Michael Holt.
Oh, my winner, Black America. Cory Booker's elected U.S. Senator. That means we finally have a politician who will put his people before the party. My loser was actually half a loser. I applaud these black ministers who came out last week and asked for Mayor Tom Baird to come up with $50,000 for a gun buyback program. But let's be honest, that's not going to stop the killings. They'd be far better off carrying their Bible in one hand and a 9mm Beretta in the other and patrolling our streets.
Brian Sikma.
Well, Democrat Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia is my winner of the week for recognizing that maybe, just maybe, the Obamacare individual mandate should be delayed amidst an almost complete meltdown of the program. Citizen Action of Wisconsin says that the shortcomings and problems of the Obamacare health insurance website are Governor Scott Walker's fault. What? For being unable to see that Obamacare's failures are Obama's fault, Citizen Action of Wisconsin is my loser of the week.
Well, my winner of the week is Brett Favre, who reportedly turned down a chance to return to football with the Rams, suggesting that maybe Brett Favre has finally come to terms with his age. I only wish he had done that a few years ago. Loser, all the folks who believe the promises of Obamacare. After a full 3 weeks, not a single Milwaukeean has been able to sign up. None. While more than 1 million Americans have lost the insurance they had. Now remember the promise, if you like your insurance, you can keep it. Forget it. Thanks for joining us. Join me for my radio show Monday morning on News Radio 620 WTMJ from 8:30 until noon. Have a great week.